The Hoop Heads Podcast is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
First thing you got to be about the kids. When it comes down to it, all great coaches, teachers, whatever, they have to be about the kids and about what's best for them. And so it starts with that. And we're fortunate we have guys that are just about making the kids better. And, after that, I want guys who believe in putting the work in and guys who are basketball knowledge is helpful, but I don't think it's number one. You can be a great coach and not be the most knowledgeable guy. As long as you're trying to do the stuff that we do and teach really great fundamentals and teach all those intangibles that we just talked about, I think you're going to have a lot of success as a coach. And that's the things that we look for is, we want guys who are there to make the kids better as people, as players, teach them some of those values and leadership and all the things that we value with our program.
Coach Chris DeLisio has been the head boys varsity basketball coach at Olmsted Falls High School in Ohio since 2010. Coach DeLisio is a 1995 Olmsted Falls graduate and has been on the Bulldog Basketball staff since his graduation from college in 1999. Coach DeLisio played baseball at the College of Wooster for 1 year before transferring to Ohio University. During his coaching career, he has served as the 9th grade coach, JV coach, and varsity assistant before taking over for longtime Bulldog coach Pat Donahue. The Olmsted Falls Boys Basketball program's philosophy is to create an environment of learning that fosters a hardworking attitude, high-character people, a winning mentality, a selfless commitment to a team, and a direct connection to future success. As educators and coaches, Chris believes we have a great opportunity to teach young men about the lessons that will help them achieve success in the future. Coach DeLisio wants them to take the lessons that they learn on the basketball floor and apply them at school, at home, and at work for the rest of their lives. In short, he wants them to turn from young men into successful leaders. Please consider leaving a 5-star rating and review on iTunes or wherever you listen to the show, and be sure to tell someone else in the coaching fraternity about the Hoop Heads podcast, so together we can continue to grow the game. Get ready to take a bunch of notes as you listen to this episode with Coach Chris DeLisio from Olmsted Falls High School in the state of Ohio. Hello and welcome to the Hoop Heads podcast. It's Mike Linsling here with my co-host Jason Sunkel, and today we are pleased to be face-to-face with Olmsted Falls Boys varsity head coach Chris DeLisio. Chris, welcome.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me on. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. We want to dive right into our first question. Just ask you how you got into the game of basketball when you were a young kid.
You know what? To be honest, I don't think that I have I probably don't have the traditional, story of being a kid and growing up in basketball circles and things like that. Because I don't have the story of getting in a gym early when I was a kid and playing AAU and things like that. As a kid, I was more the kid who, just went in the neighborhood and went in my driveway and played. But we were the guys that were playing outside all day and playing 10 different sports and things like that. And basketball was just one of the things that I did. The first organized basketball team I was on was my 7th grade team. So, I was never in the AAU circles or even playing in leagues when I was a kid. All my stuff was driveway 1-on-1 and 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 neighborhood games and going up to the green at the local, at the park and playing. But I really didn't have a background in too much in basketball. I can't say that I was like a gym rat or anything like that. I think that, I was a football and a football and a baseball player first before I was a basketball player. I played all 3 sports. I played all 12 seasons in high school. And on the basketball end, I was a pretty average player. I wasn't one of the superstars. I played on a really good team, and I had a lot of good guys around me. And I was smart enough to know that. And I think that helps me as a coach a lot. That I was kind of a role player kind of guy. So I have, when I speak to players about their roles and things like that, that's coming from the heart of, I know what it's like to not be the guy that's shooting 15 times a game. And, my job was to handle the ball and play defense and distribute the ball. And with that said, I think that, my background growing up as an athlete, I think just helped me as far as, the different roles and the different types of things that you have to do in each sport, to be successful. So, I get a lot of coaches who ask me, if I played college basketball, and, my response is, well, no, I played college baseball, which is different for a lot of basketball coaches, so.
So if you go back to that time, you think about your multi-sport experience, and then we look at, in a lot of cases, how there's so much pressure on kids today to specialize, not just in basketball, but in anything that they're doing. Can you talk a little bit? I know you mentioned just the ability to play different roles in your different sports, and sometimes you may have been better at one than the other. And so that obviously was one benefit. But can you talk about maybe some of the other benefits that you experienced as a result of being a multi-sport athlete when you were a kid?
Yeah, I mean, the research kind of backs it up today, too, as far as the athleticism, that kids develop. I feel like I think about just even being a kid and before I was even really into those sports, but, playing those sports at a young age, and then playing around the neighborhood at a young age, you develop so many physical skills, I think, that you don't get if you're just playing the same sport every day. I think about how many agility skills I learned just playing hide and seek in my neighborhood. I
agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Like, I tell people, I have this conversation with people all the time. I'm like, look, the explosion of speed and agility in the last 5 years, the number of kids that are going to, those guys, and the number of people who are doing it. I got speed and agility by jumping off my neighbor's garage and climbing trees and throwing
crazy stuff.
Right, throwing rocks and doing all that kind of stuff that you and I would have done just naturally. And now it's like we have to teach kids how to run and how to land and there's value in all that because they just aren't doing the same things. They're not out in the neighborhood like you described earlier, playing every sport. They're in a gym or they're on a soccer field or they're in the batting cage all the time, and they're not developing those multifaceted athletic skills that, again, every athlete can benefit from.
Yeah, and when it comes time for it to be organized, and you're running a 40 as a seventh grader in a football practice, you're running fast because I ran pretty fast a lot in the neighborhood because I did not want to get caught.
Right.
Absolutely. So I mean, I think about all the just skills I learned, not only physically, but then all the other things that you learn. Just being somebody who was participating in a lot of different things, you learn, and to go back originally to your question of the roles and things like that, you learn what you're good at, you learn what you're not, you learn what you have to improve at, and I think that carries over to every sport.
Are there things that you learned from your coaches that were not basketball coaches that you still apply to what you do today? Because obviously you got exposed to a variety of different coaching styles and methods and ways of doing things. So can you point to anything that you learned from, let's say, your baseball or football coach that you still put into your coaching today?
I was tremendously lucky as a kid that I was around really great coaches, just great youth coaches, guys who had a great combination of knowing how to teach you the game the right way, but also having really high expectations. And that goes, and when I say great coaches, I'm talking all the way from being a fourth grader to all the way through, my high school career. I was just blessed with great coaches all the way through. And each of those guys, I think, taught me something different. But, if you read 20 success books, all those success books talk about the same things that all those guys talked about because the definition of success is the same across the board. And it was all the same thing that I learned from those guys. As a youth baseball player, we had a coach that was just outstanding, and he demanded the best for us, but he also knew how to have fun with us and things like that. And that taught me a lot about how you can have a relationship with guys and you can demand a lot, but you can also be, somebody who has a really great relationship with them. It wasn't one or the other, you know what I mean? And like I said, all the way through, through my football career, I just had really caring coaches who were knowledgeable, who pushed us to be our best, and when I think about coaching today and the things that I do, I hope that I carry a little bit of that over as far as some of the things I learned, because I was pretty lucky.
Yeah, there's two pieces there. One is the relationship side of it, and then the second piece is the X's and O's, the motivation, that kind of thing. And I think that you're finding today that more coaches are better at both of those things, where you go back 15 or 20 years and there was much more of the focus on the X's and O's and the technical side of coaching, and there was a lot less of I'm putting my arm around a guy and really developing a relationship. And I think that's become more prevalent, especially at the high school and I think college levels, than it was where it used to be the coach is just, here's my demands, here's what I need you to do. And it was much more of a transactional experience than what we see now. So it's good to hear you say those kinds of things, that's what you learn, because I think that's really what benefits kids and ultimately benefits you and your program to really have the success that you're looking for.
Sure.
So when you were a kid and you were getting exposed to these different coaches across all these different sports, did you always know that you wanted to get into coaching, or was that something that happened later on when you decided, you started looking at, okay, what's my career going to be? I want to go into education. Or did you always kind of have in the back of your mind when you were playing that coaching might be somewhere where you might end up?
To be honest, I didn't know that I wanted to be a coach then. Here's what I knew. I knew I loved sports and I loved competition. And then as I got older, into high school, one of the things I figured out was I loved to lead people and help people. I was fortunate enough to be a 3-sport captain, and I really tried to take upon myself to be a captain and not like, one of those kind of typical captains that just you have the title.
You're a figurehead.
Yeah, but you're not really doing anything. And I hope that I was I took a lot of pride in trying to be a captain and to lead the other guys, and I found a lot of enjoyment in trying to bring out the best in people. And I'm not sure that I was necessarily good at it then, because I was a 16, 17-year-old kid. You're probably not very good at it, but you think you are. But I'm not sure that I thought I was, but at least I was trying to be. But I found a lot of joy in that. And then as I got into about my junior year in high school, and some of my coaches that really had a huge impact on me and just were guiding me, I had a guy, Jeff Chase, who was a guidance counselor at Olmsted Falls and one of my football coaches, and just had such an impact on me. And I just thought, like, man, what a cool job this guy has, that he's able to really influence people and influence kids. And it was kind of at that point that I knew, like, this is something that I could do for my life. And at that point, I didn't know, what I wanted to coach, or but I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and I knew I for sure wanted to stay in sports and be a coach.
So as a captain back then, what were some of the things that, even though you weren't an expert, what are some of the things you remember that you tried to do to help inspire and lead your teammates back in that time, whatever sport you want to take that question to?
I think at that point, as far as a high school kid, the thing that you're looking at a lot is effort. Because I think that's the big thing with high school kids is, you're going to have a bad practice here and then. You're going to have a bad workout. And, so I think about like summer football workouts and guys maybe not giving their all, that I try to encourage guys, or I'd be the verbal guy that was trying to encourage people as we're getting tired and going from station to station. So I think a lot of it was kind of the rah-rah stuff. I don't think I was good at necessarily pulling guys to the side and having talks with them, which looking back now was probably is a pretty effective way for a high school kid to get across to his teammates, is to pull them to the side. I probably could have been doing more of that stuff, but I think that I just tried to really encourage guys, verbally, and to get us going as a team. I knew the value of team at that point, so I really pushed a lot of that.
Do you have captains with your team now?
We do.
So how do you go about working with those captains to help them to understand what it is that they can do to best provide value to your team and their teammates?
So about, I want to say it's about 6-7 years ago. And it might have been actually longer. We had a team, and I found myself, I think it was in the summer, I found myself really, after some of our shootouts, things like that, I'm talking to our assistants and I'm just saying, man, we have no leadership. We have no leadership, Our guys don't talk to each other. We don't have anybody who demands excellence from their teammates. We just have no leadership. And we go to the next shootout, and I'd come off, and I go, there's no leadership out there. And I'm just hemming and hawing the whole time about there's no leadership. And I go home, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I sit here and complain that we don't have leadership, and I wouldn't sit and complain that we weren't boxing out. I just teach us to box out. I'd get us doing drills. I'd come up with a solution for it. And here I am complaining that we don't have any leadership, and I don't do anything about it. And I thought to myself, high school kids, how would they know how to be leaders if you don't ever teach them? So at that point, I decided to create like a little leadership program for our guys. And the next season, what I did was we got a book, and like a leadership book, and it pretty much was a program that was broken down. And what I did was I brought our captains in once a week for I think it was about 10 straight weeks. I brought them in, and we would meet before school, and we would talk about how they can be better leaders, and what some of the scenarios that they might be faced with during the season, and how can we handle those, and what are some of the things that we could do to kind of cut off some problems, and how to handle the locker room and that kind of stuff. So really kind of proactively wanted to try to teach my guys how to become better leaders, how to handle their teammates. And what was cool about it is it morphed into kind of what I did was I did it for about 3 years like that with just our team. And then I went to our AD and some of our other head coaches, and I said, hey, would we be interested in making this like a school-wide thing? And I actually...
Sporting the shirt.
Yeah, I had the shirt on. That was not on purpose. Love it. We created this leadership academy where I had all the each coach could send their captains, and we would run it I would just run it in the summer, and we would go through the program, and we would talk to the kids about scenarios and problems they were having with their teams and that kind of thing. So, just tried to expand it into something where we were just teaching the kids because, they didn't know how to do it. So it's our job as coaches to teach them how to be leaders. And obviously that's one of the things you want kids to leave your program with when they go out into the real world is leadership skills.
Absolutely. So how many kids from each varsity team do you have that participate? Like what's the total participation over the course of the year?
So we have had it's varied. There were years when we had only maybe 20 kids in there, and then there were years we had 43. That kind of stuff. So it just varies on which coaches and what they want to send, and if it jives with their summer schedule and that kind of thing.
Are you still doing it completely on your own, or some other coaches jumped on board to kind of help you, or how's that working right now?
I've been doing it on my own. Last year we didn't run it because we had some of with the renovation of the high school. So
right.
It was going to be difficult to run, and there hasn't been any plans yet this year as far as the summer and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been good to see kids kind of go through it. Yeah.
So can you describe what? Obviously, your own program and the differences that it's made. Can you describe what some of the differences that you've seen since you instituted it in terms of building that team camaraderie and building the leadership up of the players? Do you find that it trickles down from the people that participate in the Leadership Academy to other kids? And just, I would think it was kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy where you get your senior leaders or your leaders on your team and they're talking to sophomores and freshmen, and it seems like to me like it would just play itself out over and over again and just have benefits ongoing beyond just for your kids that participate.
Yeah, I mean, you hope that the kids who were younger, when they get older, they go, man, I really appreciated when that senior pulled me to the side and talked with me about my practice habits or whatever it happened to be. And then those kids kind of, lead. And like you said, it's kind of a snowball that gets rolling and just keeps it going. So, yeah, but we've even looked at just in our program trying to move it to more than just the varsity guys, and moving it down to having some JV guys and some freshman guys, and finding a way to just continue to get those messages across, so that every level has good voices in the locker room.
Yeah, and I think that's a challenge because, like you said, kids don't understand it. I mean, I think about me going through playing and knowing that in theory I was the leader, but I look back like you and think, well, what did that even mean? I mean, maybe I was the best player, but what was I really doing to help anybody get better? And yet, it's just like a lot of things that you think about it now, and you look back and you're like, oh, if only I would have known that, or only would have taken advantage of that opportunity to do more. And so the fact that you're giving those kids that framework to be able to build that obviously helps you, helps your program, helps them. But then as they go on and mature and go out and go to school and college and they get a job, all those skills are obviously hugely translatable. And I think that's one of the things that, as a coach, makes you feel good every single time you have an opportunity to impact a kid. And it's not just impacting their basketball, which obviously you're trying to do, but impacting their life where 10 years from now, 20 years from now, they're coming back to you and saying, hey, coach, here's what's happening in my life. I trace it back to the Leadership Academy, or I trace it back to this lesson, or I trace it back to this one thing that you said, which a lot of times we don't even remember.
Yeah,
those things, things we say, you know what I mean? Like, kid comes back and says, "Hey, do you remember when you?" And you're like, "I have no idea."
I had a kid last week send me an email. She's a sophomore in college because I used to teach 7th and 8th grade. She sent me a message. Hey, I remember this one lesson. Can you just refresh my memory, because I'm in education and I want to teach the lesson that you taught. And I'm like, girl, I don't even remember what the heck you're talking about.
It's totally true. I was just out at school today. I was standing out in the hallway for bus duty, and kid comes walking in. Actually, 3 guys come walking in. They have on like polo shirts and little name tags, and they come walking in. I'm looking at the one, and I'm like, and I know who he is, and he comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, coach," and this is a kid who probably, I mean, I haven't coached at Richmond Heights now for 12 years or so, and he probably played at some point. And you know, it's hard to put people to different, years and whatever. But anyway, he's like, "Coach, hey, how you doing?" And we're talking. And he's like, "I still remember all the things you did at basketball camp. We had so much fun. You told me about this." And he's like, "Are you still having the camps?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're still having the camps." He's like, "I want to work at the camp this summer. Can you give me your contact information? I want to get in touch with you." And he's probably, I don't know, he's probably 30 years old, I would bet, somewhere in there. That's the kind of impact that you can't put a price on that. And
no.
With what you're doing, I think that pays dividends long into the future because of that, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately that's what you hope. I mean, if your guys are truly winners, they're winning when they're 30 or 40 years old. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. So let's talk about you first coming here to Olmsted Falls, coming back and working under your former high school coach, and kind of what that was like to go behind the curtain of the program that you had played in, and then kind of getting to see it from the other side. So talk about that first experience coming back here under Coach Donahue and what that was like for you.
Yeah, so when I was in college, we were at Ohio University, and we had these long 7-week breaks for Christmas, and I come home and I'm like, I could probably help out with the basketball team. So I call Coach Donahue, see if I can volunteer my time, and for that 7 weeks I'd come in, I'd just come into practice and help however I could, and just be a fly on the wall. And so I did that for 2 years, and we're successful. It was obviously the time when we were really having a lot of success, and it was a lot of fun. I just really, really enjoyed being in the gym.
Did you know immediately that you're like, this is it, this is what I want to do?
I think so. It was kind of one of those, like,
is that light bulb?
Yeah, for sure, because I knew, even being in college, I knew coming out that, hey, I'll coach basketball, football, baseball. I don't care. I love them all. I just want to be around it. And I ended up coaching all those sports at some point, early in my teaching career. And but just something there was about coaching basketball that I just loved. I thought there was a lot of strategy involved. I thought that the coach could have a huge impact on the game. I loved the pace of it, and it surprised me how much I loved it from a coaching standpoint. Not that I didn't really enjoy playing, but I latched on to basketball from a coaching standpoint. It was no doubt, when I was coaching all three, it was the one that I had the most passion for. And then when I came out of college, Coach Donahue asked me if I'd take the freshman job, which was great. I wasn't teaching at the school yet. I was teaching in Cloverleaf for a year, so I was making the drive. I was still living here, so I was making the drive as a freshman coach, and coming back for practices, and loved it. You're a freshman coach, you're not really totally sure what you want to do or how you should do it, but Really enjoyed myself coaching, and then the next year our JV coach left, so I moved up to JV in my second year, and then spent the next 8 years there, and then was the varsity assistant for I think 2 or 3 before he decided to retire. But my coaching career here, it was great to come back. Initially, I wasn't sure I wanted to come back, just because coming back to your old school just has all those connotations of, just being back home, and not that, there's necessarily something bad about that, but you feel like you want to branch out and do something different and go somewhere else. So for a while, I wasn't sure that I wanted to continue to stay here. But knowing that now, I know that was dumb. That was a dumb thought to want to leave Olmsted Falls, because it's the right place for me to be. So as I was going through, even as an assistant, I was looking at, I was applying for head coaching jobs at other places, and got turned down a whole bunch. I can think of one place. I think I applied 4 times. Somehow their head coaching job was open every 2 years. Got turned down 4 times. I did get one interview. But
we don't know any schools like that.
Yeah.
No, I don't know any place like that.
But in the end, I'm really lucky to have stayed here and been here. And coaching with Coach Donahue was a great experience. Learned a ton.
Head Start Basketball is proud to announce our very first summer 3-on-3 league. Why 3-on-3? You get more touches on the ball. You get more decision-making opportunities on both offense and defense. Every player is involved in the action. There's better spacing and less congestion on the court. 3-on-3 is simply a great game for player development, and it's a lot of fun. Our league is for boys and girls in grades 3 through 8, and will be held at the Strongsville Recreation Center on Monday nights beginning June 10th. So grab some friends and get your team registered at www.headstartbasketball.com. If you think back to when you first got that initial freshman job, what was your biggest challenge, and then what do you think was the one thing that maybe you thought you were good at that point, but now you look back and you're like, I had no idea what I was doing?
The biggest challenge, I think, is just knowing how to run your team. I think that really when you talk about coaching, what you're doing is you're just building a team. That's really what it is, and because each team's different. And going in that first year, I just wasn't really sure or knew that that's what really coaching was all about, was building your team. So that was for sure a challenge. Stuff that I thought I knew that now I know I didn't was probably everything.
It's pretty much the answer we get from everyone.
I think that's true.
Yeah, and I think that it's I guess maybe you don't say everything, but you're just not experienced enough to have experienced enough, as far as developing great practices, to facing different defenses or offenses in a game. And you know how it is. It's there's just so much trial by fire, and you walk out of a game and go, why couldn't we defend that? And then you figure out how to defend that, and you become better as a coach. So, and I think it's just all part of the process. But there was a ton I didn't know as a freshman coach.
How much guidance were you getting at that point from Coach Donahue when you were at the freshman job? Like, how much autonomy did you have to kind of do what you were doing and kind of flounder and figure it out for yourself, versus how much was he coming and saying, hey, I want you to run these things or do these, or here's some tips or whatever? How did that process work?
He was always great about giving me a perfect kind of combination of within the framework of who we are as Olmsted Falls, you can coach your team. We're not branching off and doing something totally wacky and different, but I want you to have the freedom to be a coach. And I think that he knew, especially as I was there longer and longer, he knew that my goal was to be a head coach. So he respected that enough to just let me handle my team. As a JV coach, I practiced on my own with my guys. It wasn't like I had to go in and just run the opposition stuff with him and just stand in the corner and not say anything. I got full ability to just run my team, and I'm so thankful to him for that, because it just let me develop as a coach so much, and that was such a huge part of my development. to be able to go through that, that learning process.
So talking about, the identity you had when you were there at first, how much has it changed, the Olmsted Falls identity, since you started coaching to now? What's your feelings on that? Like,
it hasn't changed much, to be honest. We still kind of stick with the same principles and philosophies as far as who we want to be as a program and who our kids want to be and kind of what we represent when you come watch us play. That's another thing I learned from Coach Donahue as far as, what we want to get our kids to do as far as how hard we want them to play and how much we want them to play together. Because it doesn't matter what group of kids you get every year. Those are two things that can be constant every year you come in. I mean, there's no basketball team that you can't take and say, we're going to play hard and we're going to play together. And those were always two things that we did, no matter what team we had.
So how do you do that when you get a new group in every time? And obviously it's something that you're talking about, you're emphasizing, you're putting a premium on it throughout practice and preseason, all the stuff that you do. But what are some things maybe specifically that you do within, let's say, a practice plan or within a team meeting to sort of make sure that the kids who are part of that team, that they understand what the Olmsted Falls way is?
Obviously we're trying to get the idea across at all levels. So, we, at every summer camp, we're going to talk about playing hard and playing together and unselfish. And as our kids, after kids play a 5-on-5 game and we bring them together, we're talking about how great it was to watch them play hard and watch them play together and pass the basketball. We're not going to talk about the kid who made 5 threes, because then the kid's going to think, well, coach gave me recognition. So so we're going to always send those messages at the younger levels, at the middle school level, at the freshman level, the JV level. So you hope by the time they get to the varsity level, they've been so inundated with what success is, because that's really, you're going to be successful. You're at least going to have a chance to be successful if you play hard and play together. They've heard it a ton. And then at that point, you got to continue to stress with your guys that that stuff actually works. The reason that we just had a successful possession right there, if you stop practice or something, was because you sprinted right there. You sprinted, you got the deflection at the end of it. That's a great job. And you might be talking to the 10th guy, the guy who barely plays, but the bottom line is you have to reward that stuff, and you got to find a way that just make sure your guys know that stuff is what we value. You pass up an okay shot to get a great shot with an extra pass, you got to reward that stuff. So I think we really try to do a great job, and we have great coaches all through our program who just do a fantastic job of sending those messages. So, I think over time kids just get used to hearing the same thing over and over, that this is what it's about. And if you do that, A, the good thing is you get recognition, and B, it translates into success. It actually works.
So now you obviously have done that for a long time in your coaching career. But for somebody who, let's say, is new to your staff, or you think back to when you first took over the program, how intentional did you have to be about making sure that you were praising that effort and that hard work and those plays that maybe the ordinary fan or the ordinary person might not recognize? They're seeing the three, they're seeing the behind the back dribble, they're seeing whatever, as opposed to seeing the hard work that you're looking for. How intentional did you have to be then versus now? I'm sure it's just second nature that this is what we do, but I'm sure at some point it was much more intentional.
Yeah, I think you have to, as a coach, I think you have to watch the game in a different way than you've ever watched the game before, and most fans watch the game and they do two things. They watch the ball and they watch the outcome. And what happened to get to that point, they are totally unaware of. And that's okay, because they're not used to watching it like a coach. As a coach, I think what you have to always do is, what are your values? And stick with those values the whole time. And the entire time you are preaching, rewarding those values. So I think that you have to be very, very intentional. And if you're a young coach, or if you're a new coach, that maybe what you do is you pick two things. This is one of the things I used to do, especially when I coached freshmen and JV, because those kids had so many things to work on. we might have 20 things that we're bad at, obviously. You know,
20? Yeah, you guys were awesome.
Yeah, if you're a JV player, you have a lot of deficiencies. So I would go into a game and say, we have one goal, like a summer shootout. We have one goal on offense and one goal on defense. And we're only going to focus on that this game. So I would go down during a shootout, and I would stand behind the basket on the defensive end, and I'd yell jump to the ball the entire defensive possession, because it was the only thing that we needed to worry about right then. And we would just focus on that one thing. And so we were intentional about that thing. And then on the other end, it might be triple threat, and something like that. So I think that as a young coach and maybe somebody who's starting out, I think that what you do is you just pick a couple things and you make sure your guys know that, like, that is what needs to be the value right now. And it might be just playing hard. It could, if that's the thing that you want it to be, then it's just playing hard. And you say, look, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I've done this in games. We're going 2 minutes. And in 2 minutes, I'm calling timeout. And for that 2 minutes, you better play as hard as you possibly can. And if you don't, you're not going back in. It's as simple as that. So I think whatever it is you want to stress, you just find ways to make it a value, and you stress it and you get it across to your guys, and eventually they pick up on what coach really wants us to do.
Yeah, it's great advice. I know that I've said this before, but my first coaching job, I coached the JV team at Bay, and I was I think I was a year out of school, and I remember going in my first practice, and I was by myself, one set of eyes, and after the first 5 minutes of practice, I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like I wanted to correct like 500 things in the first 5 minutes. And you realize, to your point, that you just can't possibly fix everything that needs fixed. And it's one of the things that I still struggle with sometimes, is I'll find myself doing what we just described, which is, okay, I'm looking at this thing, and one practice I'm here, and then the next practice I'm there, as opposed to narrowing down that focus. And I have to still be very intentional with, when I go into a practice, thinking about, what are my intentions? What am I trying to accomplish here in this practice? And if I don't, then I get back to the scatter shot of, I'm just pulling things out of here, there, and everywhere, and then I'm sure the kids are getting nothing out of it, as opposed to learning one thing or two things or whatever you're trying to put an emphasis on. So I think it goes to what the best method is for accomplishing what it is that you want to accomplish. And you can't, with the understanding that you can't accomplish everything. And so I think that when you pick out what are the pillars of what we're going to do, so your two things that I'm sure everything that you do are related to are, we're going to play hard, and we're going to play unselfishly. And so then every other little micro teaching point that you do ties back into those big coaching points. Do you think that's kind of the way that you're approaching it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's the baseline. We talk to our guys and we say there are some non-negotiables. I mean, we're not going to talk about whether we're going to play hard or not. We're just going to play hard, like
we're going to play hard chart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we do have the play hard chart, which our program uses, and we, that's another thing that helps our guys and rewards our guys. And
so explain that. Tell us what that is.
So we track during a game. I believe it's 5 total things, but it's things like diving on the floor, offensive rebounds, charges, deflections, those sorts of things. What we call chase and flip. Some people call them back taps.
Yep.
And we score it. And kids who this is perfect for guys who maybe don't score a ton, but they can really contribute to the team. They get points, and we post that after every game, and we keep a running chart the entire season. And guys that start to take the lead in that thing, they start to get a little excited, and they start talking to their teammates in practice how they're leading the play hard chart. At the end of the year, the winner, I bought this old metal lunchbox, one of those like old school, looks like 20s guys going to work on the Empire State Building with their lunchbox.
The thermos in the lunchbox.
Yeah, I bought this old metal one, and we put a little plate on it at the end of the year, and the guy who wins is on there for good. It's as the trophy. And our guys, they really like it. We give any guy who takes a charge in a game, if we win, we give him a Gatorade. Any guy who gets a chase and flip in a game, if we win, they get a Gatorade. So we had a kid this year who broke our record for most all time on the play hard chart. I mean, when I say broke it, he just shattered it, and He was a deflection machine. I mean, got his hand on everything, chasing flips. I mean, he just did it all, and took a lot of pride in that. You know, he probably averaged 6 points a game, but you know, he's maybe the best defensive player we've ever had in our program. And you know, I think he took so much pride in the play hard chart. He wanted to see that. Coach, did you update that yet? Did you update that? You know,
does it hang in the locker room, or where is it?
It does. I'll bring it in sometimes and put it on the wall in the gym for practice because they want to see it right away, and then I'll go post it in the locker room so the guys know. And you know, we talk about it at the banquet, but here's a kid who just took so much pride in just dominating that thing and made our team better, and you know, he was a very valuable part of our team. If you looked at his points per game and stuff like that, his offensive stats, you wouldn't think he's a big part of our team. Huge part of our team, you know, because of how hard he played and all the stuff that he did for us.
Yeah, it's a great way to recognize what normally, again, people don't think about as being huge contributions. Everybody looks at scoring. Everybody wants to look at the counting stats. Nobody wants to look at the little intangible things that really, as coaches, we all know that those things are so critically important. So I want to piggyback on what you just said, because when you're talking about keeping track of all that stuff, I think to, okay, who are your assistant coaches that are keeping track of all that stuff in games? Because obviously that's not something you're doing while you're the head coach. So can you talk a little bit about what you look for in a good assistant coach, and in your mind, what the kind of person is that you want to be a part of your staff?
Yeah, we're fortunate. We have great assistant coaches all the way down, you know, and
yeah, we'll give Coach Jason a little shout out.
Yeah, there. And you know, the first thing you got to be about the kids. You know, I mean, when it comes down to it, all great coaches, teachers, whatever, they have to be about the kids and about what's best for them. And so it starts with that. And we're fortunate we have guys that are just about making the kids better. And you know, after that, I want guys who believe in putting the work in, and guys who are, you know, basketball knowledge is helpful, but I don't think it's number one. You know, you can be a great coach and not be the most knowledgeable guy. You know, as long as you're trying to do the stuff that we do, and teach really great fundamentals and teach all those intangibles that we just talked about, I think you're going to have a lot of success as a coach. And that's the things that we look for is, you know, we want guys who are there to make the kids better as people, as players, you know, teach them some of those values and, you know, leadership and all the things that we value with our program, and get them better on the court too, you know, and really allow the kids to have a great experience playing for us.
So when you mentioned earlier that when you were playing, when you were coaching under Coach Donahue, that he knew that you had ambitions to eventually be a head varsity coach. So when you have an assistant coach on your staff who has those same ambitions and eventually would like to take over their own program, what are some of the things that you might do as a head coach to empower them or help them in their quest to, you know, eventually move on and be able to take over their own program? Because we all know that as a head coach, sometimes that can be challenging, where the person has to balance their own ambitions with the good of the program and the job where they are right now. So talk a little about how you strike that balance and how you go about helping an assistant in that particular position.
Yeah, it's kind of a, you know, it's a double-edged sword, because obviously you know you have a great coach for you, but you know eventually they want to move on. And I've had two guys now who've left and gone on to head coaching jobs, and obviously you're super happy for them. But I think what you want to do is I think you want to give them that ability that I talked about, you know, just really enjoy having as far as like figuring out things for your own team. But you also want to be that voice and that ear for them if they need it, and be able to talk basketball with them and give them the opportunity to learn and ask questions and talk with them about some of the different things that head coaches have to do, you know, so they're kind of prepared, because you know how it is, you're not really prepared until you're thrown in the mix. So, you know, I think you want to give them all those opportunities as you guide them, so it's kind of that balancing act, like you said.
So talk a little bit about some of the things for people who maybe don't understand what a high school coach does on a day-to-day basis throughout an entire calendar year. And we all obviously know that there's way more that goes into it than what people see on Friday nights in the gym. Can you talk about maybe one or two things that that you do that the average fan, the average parent, the average person might not know is a part of your job description, or at least something that you do as part of your program that maybe people don't see or aren't aware of?
Yeah, boy, there's a lot probably.
Lay out as many as you want, Chris.
There's, I think the practice planning is something that people don't quite understand how much goes into really developing a great practice plan. And it's just not, quote, coming up with drills. It's really analyzing what your team needs and who your team is and who your team needs to become, and thinking about, really, like I said before, that term, building your team. Because I really believe that that's what you're trying to do every year, is build your team. And there's so much that goes into that process of building your team. And so, some of that is the X and O stuff. Some of that is the, just even with the practice planning, some of that's X and O stuff. Some of that's just talking with kids on the side, calling them in the office, talking about why they're, maybe not playing with a lot of confidence, or, what you could do to help them develop a skill or whatever it happens to be. I think that the average fan wouldn't know the amount of practice planning that goes in. And then on top of that, I think just the game preparation as far as scouting reports and film watching. I wish Huddle paid by the minute, as far as how many minutes you watch those films and things like that. It's just, with technology, the good part is you have it. The bad part is there's just so much film to watch, and on top of that, you have to watch your own film as well. You have to break down your own film and analyze your own team. So I think that, you look at those couple of things as far as the preparation, the film watching, the practice planning. There's just a lot that a high school coach has to do.
Registration is now open at www.headstartbasketball.com for this summer's Head Start basketball camps. We'll be hosting camps this summer in Strongsville, Westlake, Avon Lake, Oberlin, Brunswick, Highland Heights, Mentor, and Hudson. At Head Start Basketball, we care deeply about making a positive impact on the lives of young basketball players, both on and off the court. It's through building strong relationships with our players, parents, and coaching staff that we are able to use the game of basketball to enrich the lives of those we interact with, both inside and outside of our organization. We believe that our attention to detail, our growth mindset, and our commitment to lifelong learning allows us to help our players achieve their fullest potential. We are passionately committed to providing players, parents, and coaches with everything they need to reach their goals. These core values run through everything we do. Check out our website, www.headstartbasketball.com, and discover why you should attend a Head Start basketball camp this summer. Hope to see you there.
How much film watching do you do on a weekly basis? About, if you had a guesstimate?
Well, I mean, we pretty much break it down by game. If you figure that I get 2 films on every opponent, that's the way our conference does it. And then I'm watching my own film. So if we play every Tuesday and Friday, and I'm looking at 2, so that's 6 every at the minimum it's 6. And then if we played a team already, if we're through the second round of the conference, then I'll watch the game from the first time we played them. So that's 7. So if you figure it's taking me an hour to watch every film, then you can break it down to 6-7 hours a week, just with those films.
So when you're watching the film, what are some things that you're trying to pull out from the film when you're looking at an opponent? What do you look for when you're watching an opponent's film? And obviously there's a ton, but just maybe 1 or 2 main things that you look for. And then when you look at your own team's performance, what are some of the things that you're looking for there?
When we're watching an opponent, you're really trying to figure out what they're good at, what makes them good, because every team that we play, something makes them good. And then, obviously what you're trying to do is you're trying to make them do something different. On the offensive end, you're trying to figure out what makes them go. Is it player led? Is it team led? On the defensive end, are they kind of a stick with what they're in kind of a team? Are they switching up? That kind of thing. And pretty much for our guys, we're looking at a lot of just like how they play. Obviously some teams play a little bit tighter, on the ball, away from the ball. Some teams are playing a little bit more of a sagging defense. So you just want to prepare your guys for how a team's going to approach the next game. For us, because we're a pressing team, we look a lot at how a team tries to break pressure and how they're going to attack our press, because that's something we want to make sure that we work on every game, just because it's pretty specific to us, and we may not always see that in a film or something like that. So as far as watching our team, we're trying to stick with those same philosophies. What do we believe in? How many times, and we use the phrase with our guys, we got to do what we do, and how often are we not doing something we practice, because if you're doing something you don't practice, you're probably not good at it, So
very true.
Yeah.
Very
so,
true.
I try to look at the film from a standpoint of how often are we doing stuff that we practice, and if we're doing stuff that we practice and we're not having success, then then I'm okay with it. Unless we feel like that system is bad, we're going to switch that. But we really want to focus on the process of what we're doing every day. And there was a game earlier in the year we lost this year against Lakewood, and there were some things I wish we maybe would have done differently. But we shot like 4 for 28 from 3, and I liked a lot of the shots. We had good shots by good shooters. That's what we say. We want good shots by good shooters, and we got good shots by good shooters, and they didn't go in. So I watched the film, and I wasn't crazy. It wasn't that bad, really.
It happens.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's a low-scoring game for you guys.
Yeah, for sure.
We were actually podcasting that night, and I said, Mike, it was 44-40. I wonder, they must have not made their shots. So
yeah, that's 4 for 28. So
there you go.
You're just trying to really focus on that process of what you talk about every day in practice, and you can go back to practice after watching a film. And you can go, guys. We had 14 wasted possessions because these are times we didn't do what we practiced. Maybe on the defensive end, maybe on the offensive end, and we need to clean that up today in practice. It gives your guys a goal, gives your guys a focus on what We try to make sure we have a why for everything we do. So when I walk in on a Wednesday after watching a film, I want to be able to say, guys, here's the 10 things we saw from the film. This is what I was unhappy with. And then when we go and have specific drills to attack those things, the kids understand the why. They know why we're at the midline now today because we missed 4 baseline rotations last night. They understand that we're actually working on something that we're deficient in the film.
So how much do you share the film with them where you're watching it together? So if you say, hey, we had these 10 things we got to work on, do the kids then actually get to see those things on film, or is that just now you've developed the trust where they know that you've seen it, that you've watched it, you've made those corrections? There's enough trust within you and your players that they don't necessarily have to watch every single thing that you're bringing to them in the practice setting.
So it actually kind of varies for us, just because I feel like with different teams it's different. And obviously one of the things you can't do with a high school team is watch a whole game. They just lose the focus,
Absolutely.
So, you're obviously, if we're going to watch a film, we're going to pull clips and we're going to watch those clips specifically, or I'm going to go to those specific times in the film and just say, okay, look at this. And so that way it's in small doses. With this year's team, because we had a really experienced team, guys who've watched a ton of film and guys who, could probably have coached our team, we didn't need to watch as much film with a lot of those guys because they've seen those things and they were knowledgeable enough to understand what I was talking about. We've had teams in the past where we had to watch much more film to show them because they hadn't seen it or experienced it as much. So I think it depends on the team a little bit. But we'll probably, if we need to, we might go 15 or 20 minute segments on games that we feel we really need to watch.
Some of your kids grab the film on their own and watch?
Absolutely. Yeah. And they also know that I'm checking to see if they're watching film. So, just because we talk about preparation and that's what you do for your teammates. You prepare and you do as much as you can to figure out a way to get better. So, but that's not, I don't think our guys are doing it just because they know that I'm asking about it, but they know that, that's just who they are, and you hope they're doing it for their teammates, to get better.
Let's jump back to the practice planning piece of it and talk a little bit about what your process is when you sit down on a Monday and you're going to plan practice. What does that look like? What are you going back through your notes? You're thinking about what you saw on the film, and then how do you go about structuring, organizing how you do things? And then I guess to go along with that, are you more of a guy who's like, we're going to do the drill until we get the drill right, or are you a guy where there's 10 minutes on the clock and we're doing the drill for 10 and if we're not getting it, we're not going to spend 40 minutes beating a dead horse. We're moving on to the next drill. I don't know if you fit into one of those camps or not, but just talk a little bit about the practice planning process for you.
Yeah, so I'll answer the second part of the question first, which I'm more of a do-it-right kind of guy, and my guys know that I'm pretty calm, but if we're not giving effort, then that's when that's about the time that you'll see an outburst from me, as soon as it's a lack of effort thing. So, if we need to stop and have a discussion about why we're not going hard, and that's what we're saying, like, me personally, I never want to get into the habit with our team, and it's no offense to a coach who quits a drill just because he's just said, all right, I've had enough of this. But to me, I don't want to get into a habit of our guys do a drill at 50% effort, and then I move on to something next, and they go, all right, that's the way we can do
Teaches
things.
Bad habits.
Correct.
Right.
So I'm going to demand excellence out of the drill. I've used the phrase, we're going to get in 2 good hours of practice, even if it takes 2.5. Just like they have to understand that we need to do things the right way every time we step on the court. Because I'm very concerned with habits. I'm a big habit guy. I think you got to come into a practice gym and you got to be about your habits every single time. And, as a coach, anything that I let go will become the norm. And it's going to show up on Tuesday and Friday nights if it shows up on Wednesday and Thursday afternoon, So from a practice planning standpoint, we're trying to build a practice plan that's, part to whole, things that build into other things, So, if our defensive focus for the day is defending ball screens, and not that we would maybe have a full day on that, but if that's just one of the things we're working on, we're gonna go 2-on-2 ball screen coverage, and then we're gonna maybe work that into 3-on-3 ball screen coverage, and then we're gonna go into 5-on-5, and even 5-on-5, even though there's gonna be more things going on than just ball screens, that's gonna think maybe we're gonna start our 5-on-5 with, and then let the kids play. And any ball screens, that's the thing we're going to focus on for the day. Like we said, we're not going to preach about 12 different things. It's going to be about the ball screens. Or at the varsity level, obviously, you can focus on 2 or 3 things maybe in a day because the kids are advanced enough. So, we're trying to build up every time and just get better at things a little bit at a time. If we're working on a specific press, we have drills that we run for each of our presses to get us better at those presses. So we'll go from those drills into the whole part and play it. Typically, maybe not as much early in the season, but typically our practices are broken up into defense the first half and offense the second half. And then we'll do the same for offense. We're just trying to build up to, from those pieces into the whole and just trying to have a why for the kids. So every time they do a drill, they understand how that drill led to what we're doing right now. So, and we'll talk about that. Do you guys see how that, if we do that, we'll have a 4-on-4 drill that we run for one of our presses. And then when we do press and run the full court 5-on-5 and it happens, we make sure to stop it and say, do you see how that was the drill? So that the kids always understand why we're doing stuff. Because obviously a high school kid, they don't love drills and they want to get through drills instead of getting something from drills. So we want to make sure they understand the value to them and why we do them.
Do you have some core drills that you have? Is it a part of every practice, or something that is repeated over and over again that you go to that, like, okay, we're doing this today, everybody knows what it is, and it's something that just becomes a part of your DNA?
Yeah, one of the things we do, and we've done this since I was a player at Olmsted Falls, we have a layup series that we do at the beginning of practice. And it's, it's a thing where the kids know the expectation. We come in and we go through our stretching and everything like that, and then it's layups. And we have 5 different layup drills that we do, and the kids have to get a certain number in a row every day before they move on to the next drill, and then they got to get that number in a row. So, like, for instance, when we don't play till Friday, on a Monday the number is 18, and then it goes down 2 each day until we're at 12 on a Thursday. So the conditioning gets a little bit less for the kids as the week goes. But those drills happen every day, and the kids, they got to keep their focus, and they have to, to me, the perfect thing about these drills is within the drills, you can make sure that you are focused on everything that we believe in, and whether it's effort, the fundamentals that are involved in it, because there's every skill involved, passing and there's a little bit of dribbling, but layups and all the stuff that you need to do, the focus, and there's the communication aspect. Our kids have to talk during it. They have to say each other's names. So and at any time during the drill, we can knock them back to zero. Obviously they're at zero if they miss a layup. We can say, no jump stop right there, we're at zero. We can say, you didn't say your teammate's name, zero. And we do these every day. And it's a great conditioner, but it's more about kind of the teamwork, the focus, the communication. There have been times when our kids just, they're just struggling, and layups take 20 minutes. Some days it's a lot less. I've had teams in the past, especially the JV level, when it gets, kids aren't as skilled.
I can imagine.
One year,
I did it with my team this year. They had to make 12 I just kept it 12 every single practice.
Sure.
And there were practices that I was doing the first one 15 minutes because they weren't doing it right, and I would just be like, back to zero, and you'd hear them groan, but by the end of the year it wasn't happening anymore because they learned that they were going to miss, they wanted to do other things. They didn't want to just do layups, so they knew they had to do it right.
Yeah. So. I mean, if you can't jump stop, you can't pass, you can't talk, you can't make layups, we really would need to move on to anything else? Why don't we start there? It's basketball.
Totally true. Totally true. Everybody wants to get fancy, but if you can't execute the basics, it's going to be a long year for everybody.
So, I think that's a big part of our program. We do that at every level. I did it when I was a JV coach, and I think that you can just, there's so much you can do within that to build your team, and you can, when you're having a day when the kids are struggling, that's when your leaders can step up and encourage their teammates. That's when you can pull them aside as a coach and say, look, these are the things that we're struggling with. We're tired. We're feeling sorry for ourselves now. We can't do that. There's just so many lessons you can build into that little period of practice. So I think it's really valuable. We just try to make sure that we use it in the right way to really encourage the values we believe in.
So what's the balance between, consistency is the wrong word, what's the balance between the new and the old in terms of the drills? So you got the layups that you're doing at the beginning of practice all the time. How often are you instituting or finding something or coming up with something based on what you've seen in the film or what you see in practice, where you got a new idea and here's a new drill that's going to help us to work on this thing, versus taking sort of the tried and true drills that you've always gone to? How much are you again innovating, changing up what you're doing on a daily basis?
I wouldn't say I'm doing it a ton. I think as a younger coach, I did that, and basketball is so fun to tinker with. There are so many things out there, especially now. You could just be on the internet all day.
You could find a bazillion things.
Drills are crazy, and I used to try a whole bunch of stuff, and really I think what it came down to is the bottom line is I want value. Does this drill really have an impact? Do I see results from it? There are drills that I've seen and I've taken into practice and I've tried, and they're complicated. Guys are running around everywhere. They're weaving all over. I'm having a hard time keeping track. And at the end of the drill, I realized all we did was pass and run. And I'm like, we could have done that much simpler. So do I really want that drill in here? And you could tell the kids didn't like it. They don't need it complicated. So I think that we've come up with a good number of drills that we've really found a lot of value in. B, the kids really like. I want the kids to like our drills. You don't want to put them through something just to do it. I want them to get excited about a drill. We like to stay competitive with a lot of the stuff we do because our kids like that. So I think we're going for value. If I do see one that I think is cool, I might try it one practice and we'll see how that goes. And you go, oh yeah, that was pretty good, and we'll try it again.
Do you have names for every drill so that you can call something out and your kids are immediately into whatever it is that you're doing? Do you have that set up?
Yeah, for probably 90% of our drills, and then when some of the new ones, and you got to try to come up with them.
Teach it once or twice, and then boom, you got the name, and they're right into it. It's so much more efficient. I think that's one of the things too, as a young coach, that I didn't do a very good job every time I do a drill and then come back to it a month later, and they'd be like, oh, you got to explain that again, instead of just giving it a name so you can jump right into it. I think any coach that can can do that is huge. Talk a little bit about what you do to build your total program. You've obviously talked about it to some degree with the middle school and the JV. Talk about how important the youth program here at Olmsted Falls has been to you, and sort of what your involvement in that has been, and what your vision is for what you're trying to accomplish with the youth program.
We really tried to make it a part of our total program about now 6-7 years ago, and maybe more than that. But we've really tried to take the youth program under our wing, and have all that kind of run through us. And what we've done is kind of taken on. We have tryouts and everything, for our youth teams, and our coaches are selected by our program, and not our high school program, but our youth program. And we do a coaches clinic for our coaches, and same sort of thing. We're trying to drive home those same messages to our youth coaches about, not only offensively, we'd like to see you guys do this to teach the kids, and it's not all about winning and that kind of thing, but offensively doing this and defensively doing this, and then about the values that we want the kids to learn, and that kind of thing. So just kind of keep them under our umbrella to really keep pushing all those great messages.
So if you're building those, do you find it's important, especially as a public school coach, to build those relationships with your 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th graders where, if you have a good player, obviously there's options, especially today's society, the way basketball is, you can go lots of different places. And so I think that, to me, one of the biggest challenges that's arisen for public school coaches compared to, and it was always there, but certainly nowadays with the amount of kids that'll transfer and go and are unhappy or this or that you really almost have to recruit your own city and really build those relationships with kids and their families in order to keep them wherever, again, in this case in Olmsted Falls. So do you find that to be the case when you're looking at your youth program, that you really need to stay engaged for that reason?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's the ultimate reason why we do it. I think that, we just want to have great relationships with our kids and make this we want a kid who plays basketball at Olmsted Falls to really have a memorable experience, and hopefully that's from 3rd grade through 12th grade, and kids look at our program and they appreciate the values, that they're hearing on a daily basis. And, if they're coming up through our youth program, they're playing with their friends and they're really loving playing with their friends, and they had a great coach who talked like I talked about their youth coaches and all the values and the fun that they had, and I think if and then they're coming to our games and rooting for our guys on a Friday night, I think all that stuff helps kids stay at their public school. I think that most kids are playing sports because they want to be with their friends, they want to have fun. I don't think that that's really changed at all, even though the climate's changed. I think when it comes down to it, I think that's why most kids are playing sports, and that's at the college level too. So I hope that our program and what we value, and the fact that we, not necessarily about winning or success or anything like that, I hope that our program values kind of speak for themselves, and we want to be people that, if parents look at us and go, we'd like our son to play for those guys, and because they're going to learn some of those values, they're going to be encouraged to give everything that they have, to be leaders, all the good stuff that I think any parent would want. I always want to be conscious to know that I'm coaching somebody's son, and I want to be the guy that I would want to coach my son. So I hope that helps to, quote, recruit our kids in the state of Olmsted Falls. And I think we're lucky in Olmsted Falls being we're a little bigger as far as a school, but we still have that small town community feel. And I think being a Bulldog still is pretty cool to be a Bulldog.
If you're a basketball coach in the greater Cleveland area and you have a passion for teaching the game and might be interested in joining the Head Start Basketball Camp coaching staff this summer, please reach out to us via email at headstartbasketball@usa.net.
I know you come to the middle school teams practices and talk to us at the beginning, at the end of the year. Do you do the same thing for the youth program? Do you go and talk to them at all, or make yourself visible, so to speak, so they know who you are?
Yeah, it's a little bit harder because of their schedules, and then my kids have been playing at the same times a lot of times that theirs have. So
Can't be in 4 places at once, Chris.
Yeah, that's been kind of difficult to do. But I like to at least see those guys, and we do invite them. Those guys each get introduced at our game, so it's great to see them there and stuff like that. And it's one of those from a time standpoint that I need to try to get out to more and do. But it's been difficult with my own kids' schedules and our basketball schedule as well.
It's a challenge. We talked about it earlier, just the amount of things that you as a high school coach or any high school coach has to do if you want to be successful, the amount of time that it takes if you want to run a successful program, and successful being, again, beyond just what we've talked about, the wins and losses, but successful in terms of producing quality young men out of your program. It just takes a tremendous amount of time, and obviously those kids come from families. So I want to talk a little bit about how do you engage the parents that are a part of, let's just stick with your varsity program, and how do you get across the values that you want to teach to the kids? How do you make the parents, or how do you allow them to be a part of the program and help them to understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish beyond just the wins and losses that they're going to see out in public on a Tuesday and Friday night?
Yeah, we communicate with our parents a lot as far as, well, I shouldn't say communicate as far as verbally, but there's a lot of stuff that goes home to our youth basketball players, whether it's summer camp or middle school or whatever, just kind of continuing to drive home those values that we talk about, and talking about what we're trying to do as coaches, as a program, what our goals are. When we have parent meetings, we spend a lot of time talking about, this is who we are. This is what we're going to do for your son. This is what our goals are and our principles and what we live by. And, we have a thing with our guys that we call the Bulldog Way. It's kind of all the principles and a lot of words that we try to live by on a daily basis. And, as a parent, again, I try to look at it as a parent and say that, these are the things that I would want my kid to learn about, commitment and hustle and, all the things that we preach on a daily basis. So I think that, we continue to try to drive home those messages to the parents of what we're really trying to do with their son, as they go through our program. And we hope that they can appreciate, what we're trying to do. And we, we want parents to be a part of our program. We don't want this kind of typical, parents over there, coaches over there, and they don't see eye to eye, because it's, to us, it's not, this is not about, my son and how much he plays and what his role is. It should really be about what values is my kid learning as a basketball player. And so we try to encourage the parents to just be a really valuable part of our team, and to continue to preach the same messages at home that the kids are hearing on a daily basis, whether it's some of those intangible things or if it's about, how they play and that kind of thing. And we've been so fortunate in Olmsted Falls. We have really, really great parents who get it, and it's not like that everywhere else. So we're really lucky that we have parents who understand that, it's really about those intangible things and having a great kid, and that stuff transfers over to basketball success. So it's it's one and the same.
Do you think that proactive communication that you're doing, where you're engaging with them, getting them involved, explaining everything, and talking about the kind of young men that you want to produce before you get into situations where there could be potential problems, do you think that proactive communication is really what's sort of set you on that path, that's allowed you to have those kinds of positive relationships that you're describing?
Yeah, I hope so. I'm a big believer in clear expectations. I'm really honest. I'm an honest guy. And we believe in putting it out there, like, this is what we believe in, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're trying to help your son, and we're here to care about your son. We're here to do everything we can to help them. It's really hard to argue with that when somebody says that to you. And
should be anyway.
Yeah. So I mean, but we're very upfront with the parents that we'll say, look, we're going to do everything we can to teach your son these values and to encourage the best. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to talk about playing time. We're not going to have that conversation. We got hired for a reason to decide on playing time. I guess it's one of the, quote, perks we get. It's not that much of a perk. But that's the job we've been given, and it doesn't work any other way than the coach to decide. There is no other way that it could actually work. So, we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about how many shots anybody gets. Those fall under our job category. But we will say to you that we're going to do everything we can to help your son be successful as a player, as a person. So we hope that those really clear expectations really help us, and help the parents understand what we're really trying to do. And I would want the same thing out of a coach that my kid played for. I'd want him to be pushed and have high expectations, and to be taught all those intangible things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the things that's interesting, and I don't know if you found this, but as I became a parent, and Jason's not quite there yet with his kids as far as getting into youth sports quite yet, but what I find is that as a parent, you start to look at coaching in a different light, or at least I did, just because you realize that you want that coach to be an extension of the values that you're preaching to your kids about hard work and dedication and effort and the things that it takes, and forget about the X's and O's piece of what a coach is teaching. And again, this cuts across all sports with my own kids. To be honest, I really don't care what a coach knows. Like, my kids have been coached in soccer in lots of different ways, and I know nothing about soccer, but I know the coaches I like. It's not because I like what they're doing in soccer, it's because I like the way they're organizing their practices. I like the way they're treating the kids. I like the things that they're saying and that my kids are coming home and saying. And I think that's just a huge filter that you can put in front of when you look at a coach. And to hear you say that, I think is just, again, if I was a parent, that's what I'd want to hear.
Yeah, it's just, I think there's been so much stuff out there too to educate parents on what this is all about. And, and it's hard. I get it, and I'm a parent, and like you said, you're a parent, and you watch your kids play sports, and you want to intervene, and you want to, and not with the coach. I just mean you want to have some control over your kid
for
playing,
sure.
And I get that, and it's really hard to sit in the stands and not.
And you realize quickly though that you don't.
Yeah, and I'm not telling a parent. It's not that I think parents shouldn't be involved in their kids' athletic career. They should. It's just there's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way to do it, and we want to make sure that we're all, myself included, doing it the right way. My kid plays sports in Olmsted Falls. I have to make sure that I handle it.
It's funny. It was funny because the one game I was sitting on the bench for Peyton's team's game, I would just casually glance over to see how Chris was reacting. Stoic face, didn't have any reaction whatsoever, and I could see there were parents around thinking like they were going to ask you questions, but then they looked at you and they were like, "Nope, we're not going to ask any questions." So we know that he's not going to say anything.
So do you sit silently when you watch your kids? Is that pretty much what you do?
Yeah, I do, and it's hard because there are times you want to yell out to play harder or whatever it happens to be, but it's just I know that it's not my role as a parent. I have to shift roles. If I was his coach, I would have a different conversation with him, but that's not my role at that point. My role is to sit there and cheer for the team, but that doesn't mean that I can't go home and step out of my coaching shoes and talk to him as his dad and say, even like I'm not the head coach, and just say, you're not playing hard enough, and I know the coach at the varsity level won't play you if you don't play hard enough.
Because it's me.
Yeah. So so I think that those are positive ways that parents can have an influence on their kid. They can talk about the intangibles. They can talk about you're not talking enough. You're not playing aggressive. You're not playing hard enough. And I think that's all positive. And it's like anything else. There's a right way to do it.
Yeah, in the stands, I know that my son is in 7th grade, and the first game of the year this year I went to, and I've had some parents that I've come up obviously with those parents through grade school, and I've always been the coach. And so when you're the coach, you're coaching. And this was my first time sitting in the stands watching my son play with these other parents who are used to watching me coach. And so the game, was going on in the first half, and I just sat there. I didn't say anything. I don't even cheer. I just sit and watch, and I don't want anybody looking at me or wondering what I'm doing. I just want to sit. And a lot of times I want to sit by myself. And I remember Dad came after. He was like, "You're really not going to say anything?" And I'm like, I'm not the coach. Like the coach has got to coach him now. And when I'm the coach, I'll coach him. And if I saw things that were not being done and I was coaching, I'd correct them. But I'm not the coach now. I'm just his parent. And I think that, you try to set an example for people of this is the way that you should try to handle things, and not, as we know, there are lots of coaches up in the stands that think they know more than all of us that are sitting on the bench, and we know that very, very well. And you made the great point of being able to determine playing time is a perk, and being able to determine what the team does is a perk. And a lot of times parents forget that. And just as a note to parents out there who are listening, when you're yelling things, you're probably yelling something that's in direct contrast to what your kid has been told by the coach in a lot of cases, and that's where we all get into trouble. And so I think that depending on which hat you're wearing, your role changes for sure.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you a question. You mentioned about how there's more information out there available for parents to be more educated about the way that they should handle being a sports parent. And we talked a little bit earlier about how the internet has just allowed coaches to be able to find lots more information. You could go down a rabbit hole and spend hours and hours trying to find all these new exciting different things. But I wanted to ask you, when you are trying to grow as a coach and you're trying to get better and improve, what are some of the places, people, things that you do to grow and improve yourself as a coach?
Well, I think, first of all, talking to other coaches is so valuable. There's so much that I've learned from other coaches that, just little tidbits and here and there, you develop coaching friends and, over the years, and it's just great to be able to sit down and talk with them and say, let's talk about your offense. What are you guys trying to do here? How do you practice to get prepared for that kind of stuff. So I think that that's one great resource. Is there's just really great coaches, especially in Northeast Ohio. And I've listened to your guys' podcast, and you guys have had some great coaches on. And, but things like that with, the technology that's out there, there are podcasts, there are, I get coaching emails every day. There are YouTube, there's entire, there's a guy I just saw the other day on YouTube. I think I hear it on your podcast. Maybe I heard it on a podcast.
Okay.
The guy had every sideline out of bounds play broken down on YouTube from like one of the NBA seasons.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So I just checked him out on YouTube, and there's literally every sideline out of bounds play. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. So you just have a wealth of information out there. And I think the cool thing now, when I was younger, I went to more coaching clinics, but the problem was you go to a coaching clinic and 12 minutes into one of the speeches that it just doesn't
apply. Or it doesn't apply. It doesn't apply to what you and your program are trying to accomplish. Correct. Your style of play or your whatever. Yeah.
And it's and you're you spend $190 to watch all these coaches and not that I'm opposed to it now, but you can't really, you couldn't pick and choose what you wanted to learn about. So now, if you sit and you say, I'm just unhappy with, our baseline out of bounds stuff, you could YouTube it. You could go and you could check stuff out. There's so many coaching notes out there. So I think you can kind of specifically attack whatever you wanted to attack online if you wanted to, or with coaches that or find it in a podcast or whatever it happened to be.
Yeah, there's a lot of information out there now, and the problem sometimes becomes just being able to curate it and understand what's good and what's not, and where to go and what are some good sources. Because like you said, my inbox is constantly filled with newsletters and different things from people. And obviously, when we started the show, we were inspired by, at least I was, by listening to lots of other different shows and trying to figure out, hey, is there a way that we could do something similar and add value to coaches and parents and players and whoever might be listening out there. And it's a challenge to be able to curate it and then figure out what can I bring back and what can I take into my program. I want to ask you a little bit about going from being an assistant coach. Well, you started out as sort of a head coach at the freshman and JV level, jumped to an assistant at the varsity level, and then back to the head coach as the varsity level. So can you talk a little bit about maybe the roles of what it was like as an assistant, JV, and just assistant and a head coach? Talk about the differences between the two and kind of what you liked, didn't like about each one of those roles.
Sure. Well, I loved having my own team. That was a huge thing for me. And like I said, it was just valuable for me to have to figure things out on my own, and so much of the stuff that I learned to do was just as a problem solver. You go home and you go, man, we got to get better at this. How can we do it? And I had to figure it out, and that was really a great experience for me to be in that position. And then once I became just a full-time varsity assistant, it was different. It was different for me to not be running the practice, and have to step into that different role of being the side guy, talking to kids on the side, once in a while jumping in, maybe once in a while having my own drill to run, that kind of stuff. So it was a really different thing for me that I hadn't done really ever, So, and then obviously the jump from, being an assistant to, a varsity head coach was really different. And even being a, quote, head JV coach, it doesn't necessarily prepare you. I think that, the thing that you find at the JV level is there's always a cap on the talent at that level. There's really only a kid can only be so good, or he wouldn't be a JV
right,
player.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So there wasn't such a talent discrepancy, but you might have to deal with that sometimes at the varsity level. So at the JV level, you could maybe get away with some things a little bit more. Your team could just flat out outplay other teams as far from an effort level or a preparation standpoint. If you scouted at the JV level, like you were way ahead of the game, because it just didn't necessarily happen. So you could maybe outwork some of the other teams, maybe from even from a coaching standpoint of putting in the work to scout or prepare your kids. And then at the varsity level, that just doesn't happen necessarily. I think you can still give great effort, and you can be the hardest team or the hardest playing team on the floor, no doubt about that. But you're not necessarily going to outwork coaches as like you did, or at maybe the JV level or something like that. I think that was one of the big things, and then talent plays a huge role at the varsity level. You gotta have kids that can play, because we always say there's no offense that works with bad players. So
talent helps winning. That's for sure. No question about that.
I think it's a perfect segue to talk a little bit about this past season for you. Just what can you say about the season, like how it progressed, and then obviously capping off with the district championship, beating Lorraine. Kind of, we talked on the phone a little bit before, like talking about everyone kind of thought you guys were the underdog and everything. So can you just talk about how as the season progressed, what you felt the team could do, and then how everything played out, winning the district championship?
Yeah, we over the summer we went to a camp, and we went like 4-2 at the camp, but I thought we were pretty good, and I thought we had a chance to be pretty good. We played in the BW shootout, and there are times you think you could be pretty good. I'm usually not the guy to err on the side of being overconfident. I'm usually on the kind of the we're not that
realistic,
good.
The realistic side of things.
Yeah. So I'm always hesitant to think that we're pretty good, and I usually don't say that about one of our teams, because I'm scared to get kind of
understood
in that mindset. So we had played some good teams, and we had beat some good teams. And we went to the camp at Findlay, and we went 4-2. But I was like, man, I feel like the teams that we lost to were good. Actually, I'm sorry, we went 4-3, and I'm like, but I feel like those guys were good. Well, it turned out the 3 teams we lost to, one was a team from Canton, Michigan, and they lost their first game of the year, and they lost their last game of the year, and those were the only 2 games they lost. So they went like 23-2 or something. The other team we lost to was Columbus South, and they lost in the Division II state championship. And then the other team we lost to was Convoy Crestview, who won the Division IV state championship. So, and we lost all those by like 2 or 3.1 possession game or whatever. And obviously at that point you don't know those teams are that good, but I was like, I feel like those teams are pretty good. Well, it turned out they were pretty good. So coming in, we felt like we had a pretty good team. And we started out relatively well, even though we lost early to Lakewood. I was happy with how we started. And then we hit a little bit of a lull in the middle of the year. We were winning still, but I didn't feel like we were who we wanted to be, And I felt like our guys were they became very outcome oriented. They were just about winning. We weren't practicing as hard as we needed to practice. There were games we'd get up 24 and we'd take our foot off the gas and let a team get back to 12 just because we were just kind of going through the motions. I just wasn't happy with some of the things that we were doing. I didn't think we were who we wanted to be as a program, as a varsity team. And our kids were still great kids, but we were just cutting corners.
Yeah.
We were feeling good about ourselves, and we actually had a big sit down talk. We just sat down and I just kind of laid it on the line, and I talked about. We talked about the Bulldog way, and we talked about all the values of who we wanted to be on a daily basis, and about, none of it really being basketball oriented, just about being great kids and great people, and how we, and it's not that our kids were like being bad kids or anything, but I just wanted to drive home those points of we need to make sure that we're being who we want to be on a daily basis as far as character and effort and treating people the right way and showing up on time and all that stuff. And I said to him, I go, I don't care about winning. I want us to stop worrying about winning because it's causing a problem for us. We're scoreboard watching, we're worried about the scoreboard, and we're thinking everything's okay because we're winning, but it's actually the opposite. And after that, we turned it on. I was really proud of our guys, and it's really a credit to them. We had the talk, but they didn't necessarily have to listen, but they bought in, and they really kind of started to focus on the process again and kind of how we were before, because I thought we did a great job of that in the summer, the beginning of the year, got away from it a little bit, and then we got back to it, and that's when we kind of started rolling right there. Was when we stopped caring about winning. It had nothing to do with whether we won or lost anymore, and I think that was really a huge turning point for us. So by the time we got to some of the bigger games at the end of the year, the Lakewood game at home, and the district championship, or even the district semifinal against Lakewood again, it was all the same message. It was don't worry about the scoreboard. Let's just play. Let's just come out and be who we are. And when we used, we never really used that phrase as much with a team as we did this year, but that's really what we were trying to drive home, was just be who we are. Every possession, every time we step on the floor, there's a bad call by an official. That's one of the things our guys were getting really riled up about, calls on the floor, and I wasn't happy with that. And just we were out of character. So I said, let's just not worry about any of that stuff, the crowd, the officials, anything, and just be who we are. And so when it came down to some of the bigger games of the year, that was just still our focus. We just talked about that, and we didn't care about winning. And maybe that's not a good way to say we didn't care about it, but it wasn't our focus. And so even against Lakewood in the district semi, it was looking kind of bleak. We were down 9 with 3 to go, and we had a timeout, and we just kind of stuck with the same message. Let's just keep going, keep fighting, and our guys were awesome. They fought back, and we ended up winning that game in overtime. And then with the Lorraine game, I don't think our guys ever felt like they were underdogs. We had actually prepared for that game before the district semifinal, and that's not because I thought we were going to win the district semifinal. It had nothing to do with that. It was just because of the timing that we, the district semi's on a Thursday, the district final's on a Saturday, and I didn't want to go in with one day of prep for Lorraine. It was Saturday, so we actually talked with our guys earlier in the week. We said, look, I'm only saying this, so hopefully we get there, and if it does happen, we're going to be prepared. We're going to be prepared for Lorraine. So I think our guys had some confidence going in that we could, win the game. Our guys bought into the plan, and they were focused. And the good thing about this group is, there's nobody that they didn't think they could beat. That helps. Obviously, that's going to help. I could show up and be like, guys, I got the Cavs coming in tomorrow. And they'll be like, all right, you're keeping the score, right? So you love that about a group. So I think that there wasn't a game that they didn't think they could win. So, we went into play Lorraine. I think they were confident. I think they were together. And, we just said, let's be who we are again for that game. And St. V was no different, but obviously that they were they were a handful there.
That start, that same, obviously I was at the game, but that start when you guys were up 16-0, the whole Olmsted Falls just seemed all the fans and how crazy it was. Do they realize it, and do you realize how much the fans were like so into that game at that point, or are they just so focused on the floor that they don't even realize how monumental it was that they were up 16-0 on St. P, who ultimately were the state runner-ups?
So I think that our guys probably knew. I never talked to them about it, but it was one of those atmospheres that it was hard not to know. Because here's what I'll say about myself. I never know what's going on off the floor. I'm oblivious to anything going on in the crowd or anything like that. When we hit the three to go up 16-0, I knew the crowd was there. And I felt, to be honest, I felt a ton of pride for our community at that point. I just felt like, that's Olmsted Falls right there. Like, that was such a proud moment to watch our community erupt like that and be so proud of our kids. And again, talking about it right now gives me goosebumps. Because forever in my career, I'm going to remember the two moments is when we won the Lorraine game for the district championship, and the beginning part of that St. V game. But it's mostly because of just the support of the community. And really, when you talk about coaching high school basketball, it's really what you want to be a part of. You want to be a part of these amazing kids that you get to coach, an amazing community who comes out to support them. And then even after that game, the loss, the amount of positive messages that I got sent is just overwhelming, to be, for them to be so supportive of us through that whole thing.
And those kinds of atmospheres are fantastic, for the kids to be able to play in that, for you to be able to coach in that kind of environment. And those are things that, like you said, you never forget those. And for the most part, when you're playing or when you're coaching, most of the time you don't take note of, you're dialed into what you're supposed to do, and you're not worried about where the crowd is or what they're doing. But there are moments where, you kind of do take that in, and you look and you're like, wow, everybody's here to support what we're trying to do, what we've built, and that's got to be just a great feeling.
It is. It's like I said, we're just tremendously lucky in our community to be a part of such a great place.
Absolutely. Well, we want to wrap things up, Chris, by giving you a chance to share how people can reach out to you if they have a question, if they just want to drop you a line after hearing the podcast. So go ahead and do that. And then if you have anything else that we didn't touch on tonight, go ahead and share that as well, and then we'll wrap things up.
Yeah, probably the easiest way to reach me, I'm always checking my school email. So it's just my first initial and last name. So it's CDeLisio, DELISIO, at ofcs.net. So I check that anytime, and I'd be happy to, if anybody wants to talk after that, I can email me, and I can, we can talk over the phone or anything like that. But I'd be happy to, exchange any ideas. I'm always happy to talk hoops with anybody who wants to talk or has any great ideas. I'm always ready to learn myself.
Fantastic. We can't thank you enough for spending an hour or so with us today. It's been a pleasure for me getting to know you, and Jason obviously knows you pretty well already. So thank you for your time. We really do appreciate it. And to everyone out there, we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks. Head Start Basketball's Player Development Academy offers Cleveland area players a unique opportunity to improve their basketball skills. Regardless of a player's age, skill level, or position, training with Head Start Basketball will elevate your game to the next level. Do you want to improve your ball handling, become a better shooter, or develop into a more skilled, confident player? Our Academy classes offer training that's designed to do just that. Our training sessions are innovative and will have you learning skills that are transferable to actual games. We have 4 different class skill levels for boys and girls, ages 4 and up. All Player Development Academy classes will be held at the Strongsville Recreation Center. For more information or to get registered, please visit www.headstartbasketball.com.
Thanks for listening to the Hoop Heads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.